When Peter first encountered this snake, he knew that he had found something special, but his curiosity quickly got the better of him, because when Peter got too close to the snake, he was bitten by it. But that seemed to be none of the concern of the ranger that was with him. The only thing that seemed to matter to him was that Peter was never supposed to see this snake in the first place. Peter was in a complete state of panic. He had no idea where the ranger was bringing him, and his hand was still bleeding profusely. He had no idea if the snake was poisonous or not. All he knew was that he needed to go to the hospital, but he was pretty sure that that was not where the ranger was heading. The ranger had not spoken a word to him after he told Peter that he was never supposed to see the snake. And by the way, the ranger pulled him into his truck afterward. Peter knew he was in trouble, but he could barely think about that now due to the pain of the snake bite. Peter was crying out for help, but when the ranger finally reached his destination, Peter quickly fell completely silent again. But what was the explanation for the strange-looking snake? Why was Peter never supposed to see it, and where had the ranger taken him? But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. This was not a normal snake. Peter was not even sure if it was a normal animal. It had just come out of nowhere and scared the hell out of him. He was alone, about a mile away from civilization, and nobody knew where he was. If he was bitten by a snake here, that would probably be the end of him. And even though Peter was very aware of this fact, he was not really keeping an eye out for snakes around him. He was traveling through the forests, but that was not supposed to be normal snake territory. It was way too cold here for them, but again, this is obviously not any other snake. Luckily for Peter, even though he was paying close attention, this snake was almost impossible to miss. Nearly everything around him was green and brown, which would normally be perfect camouflage for a snake. But the animal was actually strangely brightly colored. Peter did not know much about snakes, but he remembered that it was very rare for animals to have these kinds of color patterns, as it took away their ability to hide. The only kind of animal that still looks like this is normally very poisonous, and they use the colors as a warning. But Peter mainly associated this with frogs or smaller amphibians. Whatever this snake was, it was strange, and Peter knew that he did not want to get close to the animal. However, he did take a picture of it and pinned it on his map where he found it. Maybe somebody knew more about this animal. The snake itself did not seem to have much interest in moving. It had crawled out from its cover and had just nestled itself right in the path that Peter intended to take. Not wanting to take any risk, Peter decided to turn around and head back to his hotel, but he was anything but done with this animal. On his way back to the town, Peter decided to make a post about the snake on his social media. He did not expect anybody to know anything about it, but just thought of it as a bit of fun. He knew that his ex-girlfriend loved animals, so maybe he could get her attention back by posting the picture. He also shared the name of the forest where he had encountered it. But this was precisely what made the post stand out to people outside of his followers, and these people were not happy with what they saw. Completely unknown to Peter at the time, a lot was going on behind the scenes after he made the post about the snake, and before he even got back to the hotel, it was already removed. This has never happened before to Peter, so what the heck is happening here? Peter only noticed this when he got to the hotel. He knew that he had posted it because he still had some messages regarding the post in his inbox. Had he violated some terms of services he did not know about? But Peter had no time to really question it or re-upload the post, as he was suddenly called by an unknown local number. Strange, as he knew nobody was here and had only arrived 2 days ago. Who could have his number? The voice on the other end of the line sounded deep and stern. He told Peter that he was calling on behalf of the local wildlife protection authorities and that they had to talk to him. Peter was startled by the situation that was happening now, and he was also wondering how this man was able to get some phone number. This situation is getting weirder each minute. They had seen the picture he had posted of the strange snake and wanted to ask him a couple of questions about it. Peter was confused, but the man made it clear that he did not have much of choice. The man even knew which hotel Peter was, so escaping would be pointless. Seeing as Peter had no idea what else he was supposed to do in this situation, he decided that he would just fully cooperate. He did not want any trouble, but that was exactly what he had gotten himself into. If only he had never taken that picture of that snake, Peter thought. Peter was supposed to wait at the entrance to the forest, and there, a ranger would meet up with him. Peter was then supposed to take the ranger to the exact spot where they encountered the snake. He fully cooperates with the ranger, as Peter could already hear from the voice that you can't mess with this ranger. Peter was nervous as could be making his way over to the forest. He had no idea the trouble he was in, but he could already feel like something was not right here. Peter just had a nasty gut feeling that this might not end well for him. The ranger arrived just minutes after Peter did, and did not even greet him or introduce himself. He just looked him straight in the eye and told Peter to start walking. Peter felt fairly pressured by the ranger, and he didn't dare to argue with him. The ranger was following an increasingly nervous Peter closely without saying a word. Peter just did not know what he was expecting. The snake had to be gone by now anyway. It had been hours when he saw that snake. So finding the snake in this massive forest was nearly impossible. But when they got to the spot, Peter was actually very surprised to see that the animal was still there. Even though Peter doesn't have that great eyes, he can still spot the snake from quite a distance due to its bright colors of the snake. Maybe a bit foolishly, Peter decided to get close to the snake to get a good look at the animal. Seeing as the snake was still in the same spot, he feared that it might have died there. But that was not the case at all, as out of practically nowhere, the snake latched out at him. It all went so quick that Peter barely had time to process what happened. He felt a stinging pain in his hand and slowly started seeing blood pour out of it. He quickly started getting lightheaded as he turned back to the very angry-looking ranger. This entire situation didn't look good for Peter. He was short of breath and had intense pain in his arm, but it seemed like the ranger didn't care about this. Peter begged to bring him to the hospital, but the ranger simply didn't care. The ranger was taking him somewhere other than the hospital. As Peter and the ranger walked on to a secret place of the ranger, Peter felt worse and worse. He really needed to go to a hospital because he felt like he was dying. He begged the ranger again to go to the hospital, but the ranger said, "We're almost there." But where? They are in the middle of the forest. After what felt like forever but was probably only 10 minutes, they arrived at a big and modern-looking building hidden deep in the forest. Peter was sure that this place was not on the map. It did look that maybe people there could help Peter. The ranger immediately took Peter to another man who was sitting outside on his laptop. Peter wanted to go outside to get some medical help, but he didn't have a choice, as he was put to the table in front of the man. He immediately started to ask questions to Peter about everything. Peter could barely understand the man, let alone answer properly all the questions the man was asking Peter. He really needed medical help here, and Peter's body gave up and he passed out. Suddenly, Peter woke up in a hospital-like room, feeling much better. For a moment, he thought he had dreamed everything about the ranger and the secret location. However, he quickly realized this wasn't the case when he noticed he was handcuffed to the bed. Panic set in. Why was he restrained? Where was he? Desperate for answers, Peter shouted for help, hoping someone would come. After minutes of yelling, the ranger appeared. Peter begged for assistance, but the ranger was uninterested in helping. Instead, he interrogated Peter about how he ended up in the forest, his residence, and whether he had any family. The questions seemed odd until the ranger ominously said, "We can't let you go." Once the ranger left, Peter knew he had to escape immediately. Searching the room, Peter found a pair of tweezers in a drawer, perfect for unlocking the handcuffs. Just as he started working on them, he heard footsteps approaching, but thankfully, no one entered. After minutes of effort, Peter freed himself and cautiously stepped into the hallway. As he carefully navigated the corridors, Peter spotted the man who had questioned him before he fainted. The man seemed preoccupied and rushed into another room. Peter hesitated. Should he escape or uncover the secrets of this hidden place? Curiosity won, and he decided to follow the man. Peter trailed him to a hallway crowded with people shouting and arguing. To avoid suspicion, Peter found a nearby room with staff clothing and quickly changed. Blending in with the crowd, he entered a large room filled with officers in heated debate. One officer insisted they reveal their findings to the world, while another argued for secrecy. Peter stayed on the sidelines, listening intently. Amid the commotion, he spotted a strange egg emitting intense sounds and slight movements. Everyone's attention shifted as the egg began to crack. A peculiar snake-like creature emerged, but it was harmless. Despite the earlier panic, the officers realized there was no threat. The argument subsided, and it became clear that the government's paranoia had driven their secrecy. Peter, having witnessed everything, silently resolved to escape and share the truth.